Tonight, the world's eyes are fixed on the remote, icy expanse of Alaska, a place that, for one night, becomes the center of global attention. The air is thick with anticipation, as journalists and cameras from every corner of the globe gather in the snow, waiting for history to unfold. Here, U.S. President Donald Trump and Russian President Vladimir Putin are meeting face-to-face for the first time since 2019. Their handshake, set against the stark Alaskan mountains, is more than a diplomatic gesture. It's a signal to the world that something significant is at stake. The focus of their summit is clear: ending the brutal war in Ukraine. For over 2 years, the conflict has left cities in ruins, families torn apart, and soldiers locked in a relentless struggle. The world has watched in horror as the violence drags on, desperate for a breakthrough. This war has not only devastated Ukraine, but it's also redrawn the security map of Europe. Borders have shifted, alliances have been tested, and the threat of further escalation looms over the continent. The shockwaves have reached far beyond Eastern Europe, shaking the very foundations of the global order. World leaders gather in urgent meetings, searching for answers as the crisis deepens. This summit isn't just a photo op, it's a high-risk gamble by President Trump. He's stepping onto the world stage, determined to broker a deal that could change the course of history. Trump is betting that his personal brand of diplomacy, direct, unconventional, and bold, can succeed where traditional negotiations have failed. He's hoping to break the deadlock and bring both sides to the table. For Trump, this is more than just another summit. It's a chance to fulfill his campaign promise to end the war, to prove to his supporters and critics alike that he can deliver peace where others could not. But the risks are enormous. Every move, every word is being scrutinized by allies and adversaries. A single misstep could inflame tensions, or even spark a wider conflict. The outcome of these talks could mean a long-awaited peace for Ukraine and stability for Europe. Around the world, millions hope for a breakthrough, clinging to the possibility that diplomacy can triumph over war. But there's also the haunting possibility of failure, a deeper, more dangerous conflict that could engulf the region and draw in even more nations. European allies are on edge, fearing that a deal struck without Ukraine's full participation could undermine the principles of sovereignty and international law and potentially reward aggression with concessions. The world is watching, holding its breath. Will this summit mark a turning point for peace, or will it set the stage for a new era of uncertainty and confrontation? Some fear it could embolden strongman politics with leaders using power plays instead of dialogue. Others see a glimmer of hope that bold action might finally end the bloodshed. As the leaders prepare to sit down at the negotiating table, the stakes have never been higher. The world waits to see if this high-stakes gamble will bring peace or plunge us into a new era of uncertainty. At the heart of the Alaska talks is a divisive proposal, a land swap. Trump's plan would see Ukraine cede territory to Russia in exchange for peace, a move critics call appeasement, not pragmatism. The reported deal would formalize Russia's control over Crimea and the Donbas, freezing the current battle lines. Supporters argue it's a painful but realistic solution. Critics warn it rewards aggression and sets a dangerous precedent. The dilemma: can peace built on territorial concessions ever be just or lasting? This is the central question facing negotiators in Alaska. For Ukraine, ceding territory is a non-starter, an existential red line that defines the very core of the nation's struggle. The war has not only redrawn physical borders, but also hardened the resolve of Ukrainians, who see every inch of land as sacred, paid for with the lives and sacrifices of their people. The idea of giving up territory is seen not just as a political compromise, but as a threat to Ukraine's very survival and identity. President Zelensky and Ukrainian leaders have flatly rejected any land swap, calling it a betrayal of those who've died defending their country. For them, the memory of fallen soldiers and the suffering endured by millions make any talk of territorial concessions unthinkable. Zelensky has repeatedly stated that peace cannot come at the expense of justice, and that Ukraine's sovereignty is not up for negotiation. Ukrainian law blocks any territorial concessions without parliament or a national referendum, making a unilateral deal nearly impossible. This legal safeguard reflects the will of the people, who have consistently voiced their opposition to any compromise on Ukraine's borders. The democratic process ensures that any decision about the country's future must have broad public support, not just the approval of a few leaders. European leaders echo Ukraine's stance, insisting no deal can be made without Kiev's consent. The European Union has made it clear that Ukraine's sovereignty and territorial integrity are non-negotiable principles. European officials have repeatedly emphasized that any peace agreement must be shaped by Ukraine itself, not imposed from outside. There's deep concern in Europe that the US-Russia talks could sacrifice Ukraine's sovereignty for a quick fix. Many fear that backroom deals could undermine the hard-won unity of the West and leave Ukraine vulnerable to future aggression. Public protests and media coverage across Europe reflect widespread anxiety about the possibility of a settlement that ignores Ukrainian voices. In response, the UK is hosting a parallel security meeting with US and Ukrainian officials to push for a just and lasting peace. British leaders are working to ensure that Ukraine's interests remain front and center in any negotiations, and that the international community stands firm against any attempt to legitimize territorial gains by force. The Western alliance is divided, struggling to stay united as Trump pursues his own diplomatic path. While some leaders push for compromise, others warn that unity is essential to deter further aggression. The coming weeks will test whether the West can maintain a common front, or if divisions will open the door to new risks for Ukraine and Europe alike. For Vladimir Putin, simply being seen at the negotiating table with Donald Trump is already a diplomatic victory. It signals to the world that Russia is not isolated, but rather is a key player in shaping the future of Europe and global politics. This moment allows Putin to project strength and legitimacy, breaking through the diplomatic barriers that have surrounded him since the start of the Ukraine conflict. The optics of these high-profile meetings are crucial for the Kremlin as they reinforce the image of Russia as an indispensable power, one that cannot be ignored or sidelined by the West. For Putin, every handshake and every photo op is a message to his domestic audience and to the world. Russia is back at the center of international affairs. Russia's demands at the negotiating table are sweeping and uncompromising. Putin wants formal recognition of all territorial gains made by Russian forces, not just in Crimea, but across the occupied regions of eastern and southern Ukraine. This is about more than just redrawing borders. It's about forcing the world to accept a new reality, one shaped by Russian power and ambition. Another key demand is a complete halt to Western military and financial aid for Ukraine. Putin sees Western support as the main obstacle to his goals, and ending it would leave Ukraine vulnerable and isolated, unable to resist Russian pressure or rebuild its defenses. Perhaps most crucially, Russia insists on a permanent block on Ukraine ever joining NATO. For Putin, NATO's eastward expansion is an existential threat, and stopping Ukraine's membership is non-negotiable. He wants to draw a hard line, ensuring that Western military alliances cannot encroach any further toward Russia's borders. But this confrontation is about far more than just territory or military alliances. At its core, it's about rewriting the rules of Europe's security order, undoing decades of Western influence and reasserting Russia's dominance over its neighbors. Putin's vision is to create a buffer zone of neutral or friendly states, pushing Western power back and cementing Moscow's influence from the Baltic to the Black Sea. Putin's ultimate goal is a neutralized, fractured Ukraine, one that is too weak to challenge Russia and too divided to join the West. He wants to roll back Western power from Russia's borders, restoring a sphere of influence reminiscent of the Soviet era. The Alaska summit represents a rare opportunity for Putin to achieve through negotiation what he has not been able to secure on the battlefield. It's a chance to legitimize his gains, extract concessions, and reshape the balance of power in Europe, all without further bloodshed. The choice of Alaska as the summit location is deeply symbolic. Its proximity to Russia serves as a reminder of the two nations' shared history and their roles as global superpowers. The setting underscores the idea that the world is once again being divided into spheres of influence, echoing the great power politics of the past. For the Kremlin, these negotiations are about more than just immediate gains. They are about legitimizing Russia's actions, securing its place at the top table, and reshaping the post-Cold War order to reflect Moscow's interests and ambitions. The stakes for Europe's future couldn't be clearer. The outcome of these talks will determine not just the fate of Ukraine, but the very structure of European security for generations to come. Trump's road to Alaska has been unpredictable, veering from threats to diplomacy. Just days ago he set an ultimatum: Russia must agree to a ceasefire or face crippling new sanctions. He even slapped steep tariffs on India for buying Russian oil, signaling US resolve. But when the deadline passed, Trump pivoted to optimism, downplaying the ultimatum and touting his instincts for peace. This whiplash approach, pressure then negotiation, is classic Trump. Is it strategic leverage or risky improvisation? The world is left guessing as the summit begins. Alaska is more than a convenient meeting point. It's a symbol of shifting rules. Its proximity to Russia makes it neutral ground, but there's a deeper reason. Putin faces an ICC arrest warrant, and the US isn't a member. Hosting the summit in Alaska sidesteps international legal constraints, prioritizing direct talks over global justice. Critics say this undermines international law. The White House calls it pragmatic. The choice reflects Trump's America First approach, favoring bilateral deals over multilateral institutions. Alaska is both a practical solution and a statement. Old diplomatic rules no longer apply. The stage is set for a summit where precedent is up for grabs. While leaders talk, the war in Ukraine rages on. Russia controls about 20% of Ukraine, pushing forward in the Donbas and launching missile attacks on cities like Kharkiv and Dnipro. Ukrainian forces strike back, even hitting targets inside Russia, showing the conflict is far from contained. Each new attack and village lost hardens Ukraine's resolve not to concede territory. For Russia, relentless pressure is a bargaining chip at the summit. The violence is a stark reminder. Peace talks are happening against a backdrop of daily bloodshed. The stakes are not just diplomatic, they're measured in lives lost and cities destroyed. The urgency for a real solution has never been greater. The Alaska summit's impact will ripple far beyond Ukraine. America's allies in Asia and the Middle East are watching closely, wondering if US support can be counted on in their own crises. A deal that rewards aggression could embolden China over Taiwan and unsettle partners like Israel. The summit tests the future of American leadership. Will the US stand by its allies and values, or pivot to transactional deals? NATO unity is on the line, and the global order hangs in the balance. The world is holding its breath as Trump and Putin meet. The key questions: will this bold move bring peace, or just trade one crisis for another? The answer will shape the world for years to come.